What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the First Descendant today, we are looking at an updated setup for Valby, which basically gets you ready for Season 3. One of the first things that occurred to me when I saw the announcements for Axion Fields and everything for Season 3, which was like a week ago, is that non-attribute Descendants, I believe their stock is going to go up considerably. I mean, they've always been really good, but I think they might be even more attractive now due to the fact that there's a bigger emphasis on resistances to elements and that sort of thing. That being said, I wanted to make sure that my Valby was basically good to go. So the setup that we're going to look at today is essentially a one-stop shop for whatever kind of content you want to do, meaning if you want to do Sigma or open world based content, something like that, 400% infiltrations, this gets you there. This is a bubble bullet based build, so her first skill carries this build essentially, and pretty much what you're doing is you're just putting down a whole bunch of AoE, and essentially the enemies just run towards you and basically run through your bubble bath water and die. Now similarly, this works very well against void intercept bosses. At least all of the void intercept bosses which we have in the game right now can basically get bent and they absolutely get killed off by this. The slower and the bigger the boss, the better, because basically they will just have less of a chance of moving out of your water. This does work on the Void Abyss boss as well. I'm pretty sure somebody who could play her better than I can probably do challenge mode with this as well, but this absolutely does work on just the normal Abyss boss as well, which means that this is kind of like a one-stop shop and essentially gets you to be able to do all of that content by making very minute changes to, for example, maybe like the Reactor or something like that. I think that Valby is just exceptionally good, and it's very much a Descendant that I would say at a beginning part when Ultimate Valby just came on, I kind of like slept on her, but overall and through time I've kind of like come to realize that Valby should not be fucked with, and she's really up there in terms of like her ability to clear massive amounts of enemies really fast. So, I mean, she's a different kind of play to Innes or something like that, or to Freyna, but I still somehow feel like she's very comparable in terms of like clear speed. And then on the other side, I really like the way that she can just deal with void intercept bosses by essentially just creating this like kind of like place that they cannot stand in. And yeah, I think it works really well. I think when we see Axion Fields coming and everything like that, and you're gonna have massive amounts of enemies, you're gonna have big groups of enemies, tough enemies, and so on that you have to deal with that might have resistances to elements and stuff. Valby might be the one that actually shines here, and I'm super excited for it. She was also most recently adjusted, so the patch that came out right after the Season 3 announcement, which did actually make her first ability even a little bit sexier. I wouldn't say they kind of blew her up too much or anything like that, so there's nothing there that's game breaking or so, but basically they took something which was already really good and they kind of like just made it better, so I'm here for it. But let's go ahead and check out the build. So two things right as we start. This is the non-crit version of it. I know that there's a crit version of it that you can build as well as a non-crit. The setup is slightly different. But for me, I decided to opt for the non-crit version because I wanted to use it for both, group mobbing and essentially doing Sigma and, 400% infiltrations or dungeons. But at the same time, I also wanted to use pretty much exactly the same build when I am fighting Void Intercept bosses. So that's kind of like why I opted for that. But when we jump into the modules themselves, basically the aim of the game here, as I've mentioned, is the fact that you're using Bubble Bullet. So you're using a fusion-based non-attribute ability. You want this thing's cooldown to be as low as possible. You want it to cover as big an area as possible, and you also want it to last as long as possible because you can have many of these lying on top of each other, and then essentially that all just deals more damage. Now you can of course also like just rotate in. I think in the footage you'll see when I was doing a purge, you could see that I was actually just folding in some laundry bombs as well. This is not a laundry bomb specific build, but your laundry bomb your fourth ability does deal a decent amount of damage. So I mean, it's definitely no slouch, but obviously the star of the build is of course Bubble Bullet, aka Bubble Bath. So as I said, we want damage. We always want damage, but we want cooldown reduction, we want range, and we want duration. So focusing on all of those different things, Starting us off, our first two focus mods, of course, focus on fusion and focus on non-attributes, since, you know, Bubble Bullet is a fusion ability. So is Laundry Bomb, by the way. Both of these give us damage as well as skill cooldown, which is really, really good. Then, because this is the non-crit version of this build, we can use the amplification mod. So we can use fusion amplification and we can use non-attribute amplification. Both of these crush our crit stats, but they also give us additional damage, which is really, really good. Then we can go even deeper into skill cooldown. So MP conversion is an excellent source of that for us. We do lose a little bit of max MP there, but that's not the end of the world. Nimble fingers is another source for us for that, and that basically gives us a decent amount of skill cooldown. We're still going to obviously get it from our reactor and so on as well. Then our amplification control here gives us a skill effect range increase as well as a little bit of shield. It doesn't really matter. The only reason is I didn't want to take the other ranged mods that is usually used. We don't use maximize range because we don't want to lose the skill power there. So amplification control is good enough. That combined with skill expansion, which is also another range mod, gives us all the range that we need. And then last but not least, skill extension gives us our skill duration, because we do also want those pools to hang around for a while and essentially you know, have the ability to stack up on one another and deal more damage. Last but not least, dangerous ambush is good here for two reasons. One, if you are fighting against bosses, of course, if avoiding to say bosses and stuff like that, if they go down, then that counts as them essentially being immobilized, and during that time you deal a buttload of additional damage, which you absolutely want. And then the other thing that can also happen with this is that dangerous ambush can also in some cases basically just deal a massive amount of damage to enemies that are just spawning in and have not necessarily targeted you yet or something like that. And so therefore it actually just all in all is a really good option for us here. And that's it. There's no difference to this build whether I'm doing like mobbing based content. So the same build that I was using to do my purge runs, that I was using to do my Sigma runs, that I was using to do my 400% dungeons is the same one that I use to do my bossing as well as the Abyss boss. I don't change a single mod. That was the objective of this, is I wanted to make something that you didn't have to fiddle around with mods, anything like that. It basically worked for everything. Now, is that to say that this is the best version of that for each one of those activities? No, I would say that this is an average spread across the way. There are small little tweaks that you can make here and there that can make it better at bossing, but not as good at, you know, like let's say for example mobbing, or vice versa. But I leave that up to you to essentially figure that out and customize it to how you want. I wanted to give you a really, really strong foundation and essentially something that can do all of those activities while not breaking a sweat at all. So, in terms of which weapon you want to use, now I will also say this. I've actually been using this build to just level weapons in general because the raw damage that you push out is good enough that you don't have to worry about a stat stick. However, if you want to deal the most amount of damage that you can, you need to be running around with Peacemaker in your hands. You do not have to level this up. You do not have to put a single mod into it or anything like that. You just want to have it in your hands because it is a phenomenal stat stick for Valby, or just in general for any non-attribute based Descendants that use Dimension or Fusion based abilities. So absolutely, Peacemaker is really, really, really good, and you want to get in on that shit. You want to use this as a stat stick. Again, like I said, you don't have to put a single thing into it. This is a brand new clean Peacemaker to show you that it doesn't need a single thing and you're good to go. Then in terms of your reactor, now again, because your main ability that you deal damage with is a fusion ability, you want a materialized mixture reactor. This right here is my bossing reactor because we have skill cooldown on here and we have additional skill attack when attacking Colossi. Okay, now in the case of you wanting to only use this build to do mobbing based content, then yes, additional skill attack when attacking Colossi is a wasteful stat to you, substat to you, and in that case you might want to opt in for another damage stat. You could get a cost reduction stat, you could get a duration stat. Anything other than that is better obviously than having additional skill attack when attacking Colossi. But in this case, once again, I don't even switch my reactor. Fuck it. The damage is good enough, who cares, and I just basically go on ahead. So most important thing is make sure that you have the right mounting, of course. If you are running around with Peacemaker, then you want to have a hand cannon mounting. If you are using this for whatever other fucking gun and you want to run around with it, then obviously just make sure the mounting's right. Otherwise you're going to be missing about 60% of your damage, which is, you know, no good. Then, in terms of your external set, Enlightened Mage, I've just recently managed to get all the perfect rolls that I wanted on my Enlightened Mage, which is why I'm super glad that I can include it now. This set is phenomenal for non-attribute based Descendants, and of course Valby is one, so what the fuck. Its 2-set bonus gives us skill power plus 6%, but the real sexiness is the 4-set bonus, which gives us additional non-attribute skill power of 84% once we have 3 stacks of this effect, essentially, and it's basically procced off using skills, and you're using your bubble bullet the entire time, basically. So basically, it's on all the time. You want MP recovery out of combat and max HP on your auxiliary power. You want max MP and MP recovery in combat on your sensor. You want defense and MP recovery modifier on your memory. And then kind of like your processor, sky's the limit. I have max shield and shield recovery modifier on here. You could have toxic resistance and max shield, whatever. Your processor doesn't really matter. The first 3 pieces are the most important to make sure that your MP maintenance is easy. MP recovery out and inside of combat is obviously very, very good for us, and then the MP recovery modifier on top of that just makes both those stats better. In terms of the mods that you want to roll on there, max HP and defense is good. Basically, this just increases your survivability because as you recall, if we look here at our modules, you'll recall that we don't have any survivability mods on here. So there's no HP rolls on here, any fucking, HP mods, anything like that. So we want to be getting that from our mods that we put on our external components, and that's why HP and defense is good for us. Now, with all of this in place, you'll notice that our Bubble Bullet has a cooldown of 1.3 seconds. It has a radius of 8.8 meters. It has a duration. The laundry effect is, that essentially gives you the attribute decrease. Basically, that debuffs the enemies is 27.3 seconds. And then, of course, the duration of the pool that deals damage is 13.6 seconds. So this is essentially the star of the build, and this is what's going to help you just deal all that damage. Arche Tuning is up next. So firstly, from a mobbing perspective, if you are using this build to mob, then basically this is kind of like the setup that you'd go for. So you'd go around the bottom here, you'd pick up skill cost reduction, you'll get some range over here, you'll get the increased power here, go all the way up here, making sure to go to your skill cooldown here. That's how, in conjunction with all of the other things that I've shown you so far, that is how we get our number 1 skills cooldown so low. And then we go all the way up here and we get ourselves non-attribute cohesion, which is our mutant cell, which allows us to also just stack additional non-attribute skill power based on us defeating enemies. And since this is a mobbing build, you're going to be defeating enemies. And there you go. Now, when it comes to the bossing setup, it changes ever so slightly. I did not use a mutant cell for the bossing setup. I don't really think there is one. There's possibly, you could increase your defenses or something like that, because this isn't really useful. Perhaps after the boss spawns some fucking ads or something, then yes, you could get these additional stacks. But in the case of normal Void Intercept bosses, they're usually dead by then. And in the case of you fighting the Abyss boss, I guess it doesn't really matter. But in the case here, did not pick one up at all, but you are going down here, you are picking up your skill cost reduction, we are getting range, we're getting additional skill power here, we're also getting colossi damage, because of course this is our bossing setup, going all the way up here, once again making sure that we grab skill cooldown, and then we just get all of these skill power nodes here. Once you do it this way, you're going to have like 1 left, and essentially that's going to be this node that you pick up here. Then just one other thing you'll notice in the mobbing, I ended up just opting into more MP recovery here, which just kind of like just makes it even easier to manage your MP. If for some reason you are struggling, you really shouldn't be, but essentially that just kind of like helps you out a little bit there. But those are the 2 setups, mobbing over here and bossing over here, again using exactly the same mods on the actual Descendant and everything like that. Last but not least, our Inversion Reinforcement actually does play quite a bit of a role, because once again we can pick up Arc Circulation Tactic here, which is really good. This is another massive skill cooldown for us, for reduction for us here, and this will again just help us to get those bubble bullets out as fast as possible and essentially just deal a whole bunch of damage with them. In terms of your focus rounds, this is only really for if you're doing the Abyss boss, because the point is with the Abyss boss, you got to peel those fucking armor pieces off, and this does help when you are launching with the rocket launcher to try and just get them off as fast as possible, so you can get to just the point where you're basically just throwing out bubble bullets and essentially taking care of the boss that way. And then selective neurostimulation, which is, I don't know, kind of like in every single version of inversion reinforcement that you use, this is just a really good one to pick up because it just really helps a lot with your sustain and everything like that. So I think this is kind of like the standard setup and this is for bosses, of course, so I would use this setup for whether I'm doing void intercept bosses or the Abyss boss. But in the case of you doing just like mobbing based content or something like that, the only thing I would consider swapping out is maybe take the focus rounds off and maybe put adrenaline rush in or something like that, which will just increase your movement speed and everything like that, which means you can get from room to room, from area to area faster, and essentially kill the enemies quicker. Now, one last bonus thing that I just wanted to cover, like just in case you said to me, okay, dude, I really do like using Valby, but I'm not such a big fan of Bubble Bullet. I actually prefer using Cleanup, which is her ability where she leaves the fucking snail trail behind her. I do also have a setup for that as well. Pretty much all you're gonna do, and you'll see I'm switching here. All you're gonna do is you're gonna switch from focusing on fusion abilities, you're gonna switch to focusing on dimension abilities. So instead of, again here, having focus on fusion, we have focus on dimension, and instead of having fusion amplification, we have dimension amplification. And then I like to throw hydro pressure bomb in as well here, just so I can jump around like a fucking idiot. But this is exactly the same build, with exactly the same arc tuning, everything like that. We just switch those two mods around, and then you can essentially just use her third ability the entire time to just kind of like glide around. Now, this is not as efficient as using her first ability, and it's not nearly as fast, anything like that, but yes, it absolutely is a way to play. And it's just because I want to give you options that if you are for some reason somebody that just does not like this skill and does not like using it, there is an alternative for you available that you can use. Cleanup, again, like I said, it's not nearly as sexy and definitely won't be nearly as good at bossing, but from a mobbing perspective, you absolutely can still do it, and it can still do some lifting for you. And that's it for the build. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below which other characters. I've got a whole list. People have been great in the support for the videos, letting me know which characters, Descendants and stuff they want to see next. We still have quite a bit of real estate until Season 3 drops. My aim is to accelerate dropping more and more videos once I just get back into the swing of things, and once I just kind of like get, you know, everything worked out from a real life perspective, as I'm still trying to just move around some things and just get properly set up. But that being said, I will be accelerating content. I'll be bringing more video guides to builds for weapons as well as Descendants and all that stuff. And please keep the comments coming. Let me know which ones I should be focusing on. My idea would be to cover the majority of the ones which I deem are viable for Season 3 as we start. But as we know, at the beginning of Season 3, most likely a whole bunch more things are going to change with the balancing and everything like that. So hey, we might have to do a fucking Jaber build. God help me, I can't believe I said that. But as always, thank you very much for the support. I'll see you next video. Fucking cheers.